Tonight I'm getting ready for a trip that I'm doing this weekend. It's a pretty simple trip and basically we're going to be 4 people. We're going into an area near Kananaskis, and it's something that I've been looking at for quite a while. I might actually pull that up. I don't know if you guys can see this. Yeah, let's see if I can pull this up. So what I'm planning to do this weekend is with a couple of people. We're going to be 4 people. This is an area in Kananaskis. So if you're not familiar with this part of the world, I live in Calgary, and so Calgary is the main city here, just east of the Rocky Mountains. And I've been looking at this line for quite a while in Kananaskis, which is a pretty well-known area. So plan is to try and link up the whole length of this mountain range here called the Opal Range, going south to north. So it's not a very long trip. It's about 30 to 35 kilometers. It'll depend on everything on how it goes exactly. But really, there's only a couple of kilometers, maybe the first 9 or 10 that are on trail, and then the remaining 20-25 are off trail. So I think most of that's going to be off trail, so a lot of route finding through a pretty interesting valley on the other side of our first pass. So we've got to work our way down that valley and then switch that into satellite mode. So work our way down this valley around up to another pass. Down that pass, we're planning to camp around this Tarn Lake here. I've seen pictures from above, but I don't think many people get there. And then work our way over and out via creek drainage. So it should be pretty interesting. Again, I've been looking at this line for quite a while, and it's pretty neat when you do something like the full length of a range like that. So we'll see how it goes. Definitely kind of neat. So that's the plan there. Who is in here? I'm trying to see who's. I can only see who's commented. So there's 4 people here. So yeah, that's the plan for this weekend. I'll go over some of my gear and stuff that I'm planning to take with me. Maybe pack that up. What I've done so far this year, I've done quite a few shorter trips. Starting with the big trip that I did in January with Justin and Marty. We did a pretty good 4-day winter trip. And then I didn't do much else after that in the winter, just because I was pretty exhausted from that trip, and also we ended up doing a lot of resort skiing. So I did some pretty good ski touring before and after that trip, and then realized that I needed to work on just my skiing skills. So did a lot of skiing. And then this spring I've done a couple of decent trips, different places, nothing absolutely crazy. One of the things that happened here was we had a crazy late kind of winter and spring that dragged on pretty long. So I put up a video, the Sawback video. So that was a trip that I did late June with my friend Alex. We were planning on trying to do the Rockwall Trail, which I've done most of before, but trying to kind of blitz it in 2 days, which is totally doable. But there was just way too snow. That whole area got closed down. So we kind of went all over the place. I spent hours looking at the maps where we could potentially go, and finally settled on Sawback. We were going to try and do the full Sawback Traverse, but that was a tough trip. So Alex and I did just under 60 kilometers in 2 days, but it ended up being something like 36 hours around that. And good trip, but early season, really tough conditions. I had done a few kind of quick and dirty trips before that with some friends. One of them who's, wait, No, actually, no one's going to be on this weekend's trip from except for Adam. So some other just spring trips, kind of exploring and things like that. And yeah, so it's been a tough year here just because of late spring, and then the moment the spring ended, we just got hit with a ton of forest fires. It is crazy out there. My friend Zach was through hiking the GDT. He did section A to C, and then that's when, I don't know if you guys have heard in the news, depending who's watching, Jasper got hit hard by forest fires. So the city itself, a lot of it was damaged, and then everything north of Jasper, everything north of Lake Louise basically is closed. So my friend Zach had to end his GDT trip, and it really throws a wrench in most people's plans around here, because if you're coming from somewhere else and you maybe had reservations or plans that went into Jasper, it really throws things off. So it's quiet. It's really quiet in Banff, just because of that difference between, taking Jasper out of the mix. So kind of weird season here. I think a lot of people's plans have been thrown off. Like I said, I was showing this trip that I'm going to be doing this weekend. So again, I'll just show it. It's a traverse. It's a pretty interesting line that I've been looking at. So this is in Kananaskis. Again, I'm here in Calgary. Kananaskis is basically the first kind of area into the Rockies from Calgary. And it's just a line that I've been looking at a lot over the years since I moved here. If you don't know, I moved to Calgary from Eastern Canada in 2021. So this is definitely a line I've been looking at for quite a while. Not many people go in there for whatever reason. Just looks like there's some pretty good alpine. I've been up to this area here, just below this pass once last fall. I've got a video, and it's called "You Will Get Cold, You Will Get Wet" or something. I got hit by a pretty big snowstorm right in this drainage right here. So I've never made it over this pass, and that's the plan for this weekend. So, it's not a super long trip, not a super long route, but a lot off trail. So that adds to the kind of X factor of it. And I'm planning to go about it. I think my guess is our first day is 20 to 23 kilometers. The second day is pretty short, around maybe 15-ish kilometers. But again, the majority of that, except for the first section here from our start to this first path, that's on trail. The rest of it's off trail. So the moment you end up having some off trail travel, it really changes the dynamic. You just can't factor in how fast you're going to be going. It's really hard to predict. So it can go really slow sometimes. Sometimes you get lucky and you get a lot of open trees and you cover ground pretty well. So, not a crazy hard route, at least from my point of view, but we'll see. So that's the plan for this weekend. So what I figured I could do is, if there's any questions, if anyone has any questions, if you've been following my channel, if you're a regular viewer, if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat and I will definitely answer them. So yeah, I've been doing a couple trips as much as I can. I think I've done 5 or 6 overnight trips so far this year. Basically, in terms of what I've been trying out in terms of gear and things like that, pretty standard stuff. I haven't really changed much. One thing I have been trying is the Z-Packs Altaplex. So the Z-Packs, this isn't my tent. This is Justin's tent. He lent it to me. He doesn't use it that much anymore, I don't think, but he's used it quite a lot. So I've been using the Z-Packs Altaplex this year just to give it a fair shot, because it is designed, or the idea with the Z-Packs Altaplex is that it's for taller people. And I've definitely, the first time I used it, I still felt like it was just too small for me. A little bit of discussion with Justin, and he explained or told me a little bit about how to pitch that. And there is a way to kind of get more interior space. You know, last year I used the XMID Pro quite a bit, and I just found it realistically too small for me. So stuck with the XMID Solid. I think for this trip, I'm just gonna, and you know, I have quite a lot of experience with the Solid, so I've used it in a lot of conditions. I think it's a great little tent, and it definitely fits me. The inside is, the inner tent is about the same size as the inner tent of the Pro. But if you touch the walls on this, you're not touching where there's condensation, and I end up touching the walls on the One Person Pro all the time, and if there was condensation, I was getting my sleeping bag pretty wet, and that I found frustrating. So I sold that. I kept the One Person Solid. This is a great little tent, but I definitely wanted to, and I've used this in a lot of conditions, in late season, so in snow, early season. Great little tent. I think you really can't go wrong with that. But what I have been playing with is the Altiplex. So I took this tent out on, I did a trip 2 weekends ago, just exploring a bunch of different places in a pretty interesting little area over here, actually. I'll show you guys where that was. That was a trip that we went up to this area called the Junction. Junction Mountain is over here, pretty well known. There's an area with waterfalls in here, and we just went up and explored all of these cirques, and then ended up camping. Feel like we camped somewhere. Oh, we camped right here. There's a hunter's camp there. So we camped in there, used the Altiplex there, used the Altiplex on my Sawback trip in June. Worked out well. I mean, it's a super lightweight tent. If you compare this tent to something like the, if you compare this tent, the Altiplex with the pole jack, comes in at 17 ounces, which is pretty light for what you're getting. Versus, obviously, I mean, it's hard to compare the two, but this is 30 ounces as it is. I bring one extra pole, so one of these Z-Flick poles from Durston, and that works out to 34 ounces. So 34 versus 17, pretty big weight savings with this, and you notice it in your pack. Definitely, if I knew I was going to be in terrible weather, the tent I'd bring would be the XMID, the One Person, the Solid, no question there. But in terms of weight, for the kind of stuff like especially an overnight kind of mission type thing, I think this is fine. You have to remember that where we are, the weather can be pretty bad pretty quick. So I think this weekend we're looking at something like highs of 15 Celsius, whatever that is in Fahrenheit. And then lows of around 5 degrees Celsius. So a cool night, and I'd expect to get condensation with that. So having kind of refined my pitch, I'm curious if I'll be able to keep my sleeping bag dry in this. You know, some of the main differences I find just in terms of how well this, you know, the XMID versus, it's so hard to compare the XMID to other tents, just because it really is refined, and I really do find it has a lot of advantages. You know, the Altiplex, so far my experience is that the pitch is very quick, probably just as quick or quicker than the XMID. The things that I kind of don't like about it is getting in and out. You know, getting the vestibule, you've got to reach way out of the tent. And that's just kind of annoying. And then you've got to kind of crawl out of the tent sideways. Whereas the XMID, from sitting up, you can just reach the door, zip it up, roll it up. It can be raining a bit, and you don't get any rain or precipitation on you. And, you know, it's easy to get out of. You just sort of step out and you're right there. It's a fantastic design. But this is very light. And a lot of people have have used this tent a lot, so that the Altiplex has a following, and I'm trying to give it its kind of proper usage just to see how that is. So that's something I think, you know, I was kind of going back and forth for this weekend. Would I just stick with my X-Med? But I think I'm going to give this one maybe 1 or 2 other trips just to, you know, say that I've given it a fair shot. It's light. It packs down small enough, but one of the things that I also like about this tent is how small it is when I get home and I just lay it out flat on my floor. It's very easy to sort of dry out and pack up. So that, I believe, is going to be the tent for my weekend. So, you know, obviously great little tent here, but not what I'm going to use. So that's sort of something that I've been playing with this year. A few other things that I've been trying out. I have, you know, obviously you may or may not have seen my video about the Phoenix 7X. So I have kept this and I've been using it a lot. So I definitely will have a sort of follow-up video coming for this watch. My real, you know, having used it a lot, having used it on runs, on day hikes, on multi-day trips, navigating off trail, navigating with it on trail, all kinds of things. I think I have a pretty good handle on it now, and I'm maybe a bit better feedback on how this watch is. Have I completely changed my mind? Is it the best thing? You know, a lot of people said that, you know, if I used it more, I'd probably end up liking it. There are definitely things that, having used this watch, I've probably changed my mind on a little bit compared to my first impressions, but there's still some things that I just think it's due for an update. So we'll see. I think there's a Phoenix 7 coming out, but still a good watch, durable and all that. It helps me use my phone less and therefore reduce my battery usage as a whole. So I think that's beneficial. Is everything that this watch can do great? Honestly, I end up just tracking. Most of the time, I'm just tracking my distances and knowing how far you've gone, how far you have to go exactly to camp, and what your speed is, or your average speed, your moving speed, your average speed, and your current speed. Those things can really help you know and predict where you are, how long things are going to take, and help with your navigation in general. So it's definitely a good tool. Is it the best thing in the world? Yeah, it's okay. What is my sleeping bag? My sleeping pad of choice. Yeah, so anyways, just wrapping up the watch, I'll have sort of a more full review coming, or just thoughts about it in general. There's so many reviews of these watches, so that'll be coming. What is my sleeping pad of choice? My sleeping pad of choice, very simple. You know, I have 2 sleeping pads. Well, actually I have 3, but there's 2 that I basically use. And on this trip, this is just my standard sleeping pad. It's the Thermarest X-Lite, the NXT, the current version. This is the big rectangle. It's a huge mattress. And I find there's a bunch of reasons why I use this mattress. A lot of people kind of knock on it just for whatever reason. I think it's fun to try and kind of dethrone probably one of the most popular mattresses ever made or ever sold. So, you know, for me, the thing about the X-Lite is just that it's so reliable. I had the previous one for 10 years. I still have it. It's delaminated a bit in the middle, but it's still good. It still works. So I really trust it, and it's really warm. It's a really, really, really warm mattress. it's hard to explain. I think the R value is kind of underestimated on some of these pads. So, you know, I use this pad. This is just the pad I use all the time. I don't really need to try a new one. I find it comfortable enough. I use this on my 3 seasons. This could be a 4-season pad for a lot of people, depending on the climate that you're in. And then in the winter, I use the, it's up there. It's my, the Xtherm, the Thermarest NeoAir Xtherm, which is just an absurdly warm, reliable, and in my experience, really tough pad. So this, I just use it because I trust it. Really warm. It's so warm. And that's really important to me, is to have a pad that is warm enough. There's nothing worse than having a pad that is cold, at least in my opinion. So, you know, if you're awake because you're cold, first of all, when you have a really warm ground pad, it means you can go a little bit lighter on your sleeping bag or quilt, or you can go more towards its limit. So sleeping pad is a really important part of my system. This is just really reliable. It's a huge rectangle, so I have a lot of space. I sleep well on that because it's a rectangle. And in terms, so I think it's really reliable, really warm, which is super important. And then in terms of comfort, I find if I let a bit of air out in this, obviously if you inflate these to the max, they're like a board, and it's not comfortable. But if you let a little bit of air out and you get to sort of a sweet spot where you're comfortable and it's still very warm, then I sleep well on it. And then if I feel that maybe because I've let too much air out and it's too cold, well, then I can inflate it, and maybe it's a little bit less comfort in terms of a mattress, but then you're super warm, and that's more important when it gets cold out. So I've slept on this many times, early season, late season, when it's essentially winter conditions and I'm on snow and ice, and this just, it just works. So that's the pad that I'm using all the time. I don't even think about it. I use it with an inflation sack, just because that's reliable. It takes me less than a minute to inflate this big mattress with this pump sack. So, you know, I do have on my channel some of those, a review of the, what's the pump called? The Zero pump by Flextail. So I have a review of that. You know, they sent that to me and I tried it. The thing about that is, you know, and someone, you know, do I have any issues puncturing? I've never had an issue. I never have a foam pad under. I used to bring a big ridge rest for my winter trips, and I'd put those under my Xtherm. I definitely don't do that with this in the summer, and I don't do that with my Xtherm in the winter anymore. I do always have a smallish foam pad to sit on, bigger than just a sit pad for the winter, but in the winter on most trips now I'm really trying to avoid being alone. And if we all have kind of smaller pieces of foam plus all of our backpacks, if one of us was to really damage our ground pad and we combined backpacks and all of our foam pads, we'd be able to scrounge something together and have one of us kind of get through the night. But no, I've never once punctured one of these X-Lights. Just never happened. Like I said, I have one I got it in 2011, and I used it until I got this one. A lot of use on that pad and no issue. This pad is definitely an upgrade. It's just got a nicer face fabric. The other one is much more rubbery. And I mean, you guys know what the Neo Airs used to sound like. They were like a bag of chips. This one it's silent. It's perfectly good. So you kind of, I think it's a big upgrade. It's apparently a little bit warmer. This is not a light pad, but it's just one of those things now that I think is just worth it. It's hard to go back to sleeping on a thin. I slept on a 5mm yellow foam pad for years, and I just can't do it anymore. This just gives me a better night's sleep. So that's my pad. In terms of sleep system, yeah, this weekend, if we go about it that way, sleep system is going to be this pad, the Altiplex. So going with the Altiplex, the ground pad is the X-Lite, and then in terms of insulation, just what's it called? Just the Vesper quilt. It's a -6 degree. I don't like quilts really when it gets too cold, but the temperature range 5 degrees, this will be just fine. It's pretty light, 20 ounces. It's a good size. It's a good sleep system. How do you feel about mech gear? I've heard that some backpackers compare it to REI in the States. What's your experience with mech gear versus REI brand? I live in Canada and don't have access to REI. Okay, so mech is an interesting topic. So that's my sleeping gear. So for this weekend, mech. They actually sent me this pack. This is, and I shop at mech. I shop at mech a lot. I really do like mech. They have, every now and then they come out with a product it's really good. I don't fully understand their design group. That's the only way I can say it. So they sent me this pack. It's an ultralight, and it is true to a lot of things. And I just haven't been able to kind of commit to using it because it's got a lot of weird things. There's a lot of things about it that I'm on the fence about. Turns out you can't remove the hip belt. On a pack this size with a running vest, you just don't need a hip belt, and I don't really use them much. If I am going to use a hip belt, it's because it's got good pockets, so it's almost like using a fanny pack. And it has tiny pockets, so this hip belt that I can't get rid of, so I'm stuck with that. I think it has a really nice looking running vest. It is, I think, a great running vest. Very simple, one pocket on each side. This is called the Ceratus 40 UL or something like that. Problem with this, and this kind of goes to what I don't understand about mech, is it has these very tall side pockets that taper down all the way to a pretty small volume. You can get an Nalgene bottle in there, but it's not ideal. If I grab a smart bottle, it fits, but you can't reach this while you're on you can't get it out while you're hiking. So you've got to stop, swing your bag, and it's kind of weird how it gets bigger at the top. I don't get it. I just don't get it. I think it's unfortunate because if they had just put normal pockets on there somehow, you would have a great little inexpensive bag. Just simple roll top. It's got a kind of key style accessory pocket there. Not a huge fan of having stuff going on here, just because when you roll it, that's not a waterproof zipper. So yeah, over the years I have used mech stuff a lot. I have trouble, even they sent this for me to test, and it's got some features that are so strange that I have trouble. I'm not going to say wasting a weekend using it, but using a weekend with that and then discovering that it has problems. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure you could do a lot of trips with it. It's hard for me though to justify, like, I don't do my trips. I don't go out to test gear. Some people do, and that's fine. That the goal of their trip is to test gear. I plan a trip. I do things when I can. I have a family, so I can't. It's very hard for me to sacrifice or dedicate a weekend for me to testing gear. If I can test gear and kind of slip things in and it doesn't really affect anything, then that's fine. I'll do it. But if I look at something and I know right away that it has a flaw or something that I don't like, I'd just rather not find out the hard way. But yeah, in general, there have been a lot of products from MEC that I used over the years. Tons of products from MEC, and it's a very reliable place for me to go get gear. I think they have some, they made their ultra light line has a quilt, which is really interesting. They have good gear for kind of very generic, good little tents, things like that. They're definitely less expensive than going out and getting the equivalent from Big Agnes or whatever. But you are getting, generally speaking, not necessarily as niche or let's call it super high-end products. You'll get a very reliable, normal one-person tent or two-person tent. It won't be super light. It won't be super heavy. It's good. It's got a good guarantee, fantastic guarantee. But you can obviously get something lighter and often a little bit more cutting edge from a company like Big Agnes or Nemo or whatever. So they do try sometimes, but I find there's just something about, so MEC for me has always made good but not A-tier gear. When they were bought out and stole my $5 deposit, I felt it slipped a bit, so I just switched to VPO. Yeah, it's bought out. They were having some serious, MEC was having some serious business problems. I don't know why exactly. They seem to be a reference in Canada. I have some opinions on that. I think that they get some weird clothing design options. I feel like, I have a pair of pants, I don't know where they are. Just these real plain MEC pants that I got years ago. Just these sort of standard, these are, when I'm on a trip and I'm not wearing pants for the whole trip, if I'm wearing shorts, these are the pants that I bring with me as my backup. They're pretty tough. They're MEC pants. They don't make these anymore. I've had these probably 10 or 15 years because I don't wear them that much. But they're tall, so they fit me. They're simple. They're just, they're fine. But they don't make it. They don't have anything like this anymore. And to me, I think you want to have some very reliable, staple pieces of gear if you're a company like MEC or REI. So REI has had some tents over the year. They had, what was it, the Quarter Dome or something like that was almost, I don't know if they still have it, but head to head with the Tiger Wall by Big Agnes and tents like that. They have the Flash 55 backpack that's a lightweight, super capable. I've never actually bought that years ago on one of its first versions, and it just didn't fit me. But these products that are just very reliable, that are kind of go-to for a lot of people. And that's what I find MEC has missed out on in the last few years. They don't have the, I can't go into the store and say, you know what? I shredded my pants. I need a new pair of very reliable camping pants, backpacking pants that are tough and whatever. All of they get very, they get kind of trendy. They go with trends, and all of their outdoor pants right now have these elastic cuffs at the bottom, and they ride above your shoes, so you get dirt in your shoes. And I just wish they had some staples that they didn't change that I could rely on, which is exactly what I do with Eddie Bauer. So I have an Eddie Bauer review of a whole bunch of different clothes that I use from them. And like they're, again, this is what I'm going to be wearing this week. They're guide pants. Are they the best pants in the world? No, but they're pretty good. And they're not the cheapest, but they have features that I like, and they're reliable in that I know I can just, if I shredded these tomorrow, I could order a new pair and have a good pair of pants, and lots of different colors, and they just kind of run those basics that are reliable. MEC, sometimes they have products that last a year, and then they disappear. That I find pretty annoying. So they have some good stuff. They are definitely kind of a resource for outdoor gear in Canada, but I think they could do a better job. I don't know what it's like in their design group, but something weird goes on there. Some other things I've been testing out, some headlamp from Black Diamond. So they sent me this. It's their new, it's marketed for, okay, what is your connection? What is your opinion on hyperlight mountain gear backpacks, considering so many people have them? And also, how do you think Dyneema material is age over time in terms of durability? So I've never, I'll tell you the one reason why I've never had a hyperlight mountain gear pack. And it's not price, it's not whatever. It is it's very simple. First of all, they're not cheap packs. And that's, you know, they're very simple, which is what I like. But the way I use a pack, I like to just clip it like that and roll it. That's how I use it. The Hyperlight Mountain Gear packs use the side, they clip down on the side. And I don't know why it is. I just don't like using roll top. I don't like using roll top compression bags like that. I find it's slow. Generally speaking, I don't need to compress my bags. So I just like to clip it, roll it, put a strap over and be done. So if I had a Hyperlight Mountain Gear pack, the first thing I'd do would probably be cut off those straps. And then the resale, you got trouble reselling it again because you've chopped it. It's pretty hard to buy something for hundreds of dollars Canadian. They're not cheap here in Canada. And then buy something like that, first thing you do is put scissors to it and cut off the strap because there's a design feature that I don't like about it. But a lot of people use them. My friend Tyler uses them. He likes them. I've been on trips with people who have them, and they seem fine. I don't think they're particularly advanced in their design. If I was going to go out and buy a pack tomorrow, it would be the Kakwa 55, no question. In the grid, the Ultra Grid, the cheaper version. Because getting to your question, these Dyneema and different composite fabrics, so this is Ultra, basically all they are is a tough base fabric with a laminate that makes it waterproof. And no matter what, at the end of the day, that laminate is gonna wear. So you're paying a fortune, no question, you're paying a lot of money for features that, you know, I don't know how long that lamination stays together. So in my mind, I did years and years and years of trips. The backpack that I've used the most in my life is it's the Go Light Jam 2. I got that pack in 2007 or 2008 and used it for over 10 years. It's just sort of standard grid nylon. And that doesn't cause a problem at all. When I bought that pack, its retail was $100 US. And I could go out, I still have it, I could go out and do a great trip with it tomorrow and it'll be fine. So do you get a huge advantage from these expensive packs with these composite materials? Again, this isn't DCF, but in terms of price, it's pretty similar. Think about this for a second. Your pack is made out of this material that's supposed to be super durable. But both Hyperlight Mountain Gear and like this pack, the Black Diamond Betalite, in the most high use areas, the pockets, the front here, these are all places that get a lot of abuse. They're not the tough fabric. It's sort of silly, you know, so this fabric should be the tough fabric, and actually this fabric underneath could be the cheap fabric, because this fabric isn't gonna get much abuse at all. It's my packs, if I take out my Go Light Jam, it's the side pockets that have holes in them, the bottom of the pack has holes in them, especially here, because if you end up sort of going down something and sliding on your, you know, you're down climbing and you're kind of sliding on your butt and stuff like that, this part of your pack is what gets abused. So right on the edge here, and that's why you'll see some packs that have a strip of material at the bottom of the mesh pocket. And the mesh pocket is pretty vulnerable too. So the Go Light Jam, again, one of my favorite packs ever, it doesn't have a stretch pocket, it has a zippered pocket, which I really like. It's my favorite bag design. I think it's fantastic. So I think, I mean, honestly, for the average person who's using a pack a couple of times a year, DCF is overkill. And ultimately, when I'm out and it's raining a lot, I want my stuff in a bag anyways, you know, some kind of waterproofing bag, because you're gonna have to open your bag. There's a big hole in the top. So yeah, it's a tricky one. I don't know how, I would really be curious if anyone has any sort of long-term experience with DCF, real long-term, because, you know, something like a through hike, I'm expecting someone who does a through hike, like, you know, PCT, GDT, AT, it's hard for gear to survive that whole trip. You're putting on a lot of abuse. So I don't know if, I find the DCF thing a little bit funny. I don't think it's necessary, but that's where everyone is. And the good designs are in those materials now. So I definitely like that Dan has come out with his sort of cheaper version of his pack, the Ultra Grid versus the Ultra. And that pack retails, the Kakwa 55 retails for, I don't know how much it is. It's under, I think it's around 300 Canadian, which is pretty good. In the States, it's gotta be 250 or something. I'm not sure, but great pack design, and that you can get it in a slightly more accessible material is pretty cool. So yeah, some other things that I've been testing this year, Black Diamond headlamp. So this is, they're marketing it as a trail running headlamp. It's pretty, it's a beast. This thing is around 4 ounces, has a, I think 2,500 milliamp hour battery, which is a lot. So this thing can last a long time. And you can also swap out the battery and sort of swap it onto a new one. They say that that's for sort of people doing like ultra running and stuff like that, where you might need more, you might need to run through the night. It's definitely a nice headlamp, performs well. I find it a little chunky, a little heavy, but in terms of, I mean, obviously if you buy something, you know what it weighs, you know how big it is, and you're making that choice. You want, it's got a lot of, I think on medium, it lasts 4 hours, which is pretty impressive. So I have been using that a bit, not on all my trips. Like this weekend, I hardly need a headlamp, so I'm taking my super light, or light-ish Phoenix headlamp. Some other stuff, I've been trying this jacket, pretty neat. This is from a hunting company called First Light. It's called their Flash Storm rain jacket. They sent it to me. I'm trying it. The material is really interesting. So if you're using any of the kind of, this is one from, what's it called? Eddie Bauer. It doesn't quite have that plasticky rubber feel that a lot of them do. Like this one, you've probably seen with this sort of kind of plastic on the inside, which doesn't feel great when it gets wet. This is a pretty neat material. So it's a little rain jacket. It weighs 6.5 ounces. It's really light. It's got some really interesting build with laminations versus stitching. It's a pretty neat product. I actually like it. The only problem I have with it is that it's their first year making it and they don't have a tall, so it's a little bit short on me. So it means that on a trip, on a real trip, I'm still just bringing my Eddie Bauer jacket because it comes in a tall. What I've been doing with this one, and it works really well, is I've been doing quite a bit of fly fishing this year. It packs down into its own little pouch, and it goes into, I have a sling vest, and you know, it fits in there, takes up hardly any space, and if I'm wearing my waders, having a short jacket doesn't matter at all. But if you're in the market for an interesting rain jacket, very light, really nice sort of fabric feel on the inside, it's worth looking at. It's not cheap. I think it goes for $300 or $250. It's definitely not cheap. But if you're kind of a regular size person, so I'd say 6 foot, 6'1" and under, this is kind of neat. It's a nice product. It just doesn't fit me. Like, all of my clothes are in size tall. So if I put this on top of any of my shirts or anything like that, my shirt sticks out the bottom. So it's just, I think it's a good product. Just sizing doesn't match me, but I'd bet if it does well that they come out with a tall, because it is a nice product. It's very light. It's intended as something that you just have in case there's some rain, not for something that you're going to be wearing all the time. You know, if I was going to be doing a big trek with a lot of bushwhacking, I'd want something a little bit more durable, or something just cheap that I'll shred and I don't care about. So those are some of the things that I've been trying. The Altaplex, the Altaplex. I mean, and I've definitely also been, you know, I put up my sort of final review of this pack, the Beta Light. It's a nice pack. It's not perfect. It's definitely a nice production pack. It has everything that I need. A few little things that, you know, could be improved. I hope they do improve. But overall, I think it's a pretty good first ultralight pack for Black Diamond. Been using that. So the Altaplex, the Black Diamond, been using this headlamp a little bit. It's got one of the nicest, brightest light patterns on its kind of diffuse setting. Very, very, very even, very bright. So it goes up, it has this boost mode that just goes, I don't know if I can, very bright. I think that's 1,200 lumens when you put it on the boost mode. So very bright. If you're doing things like running and stuff like that, pretty useful. And then that jacket. So really not trying out too much gear this year. I've said this before, I say it in comments. What's the yellow bag? Oh, yellow, okay. Yeah, I'll walk through that. You know, I really try to not have too much new stuff with me all the time, because it's nice to have things that you can rely on. You know, again, going back to the X-Lite, I can rely on that pad. I don't think about it. I just don't need to go out and find out that there's some other pad that's junk and it kind of ruin a trip. So yeah, I'll go through the rest of the stuff that I am bringing on this trip. I will go through my little yellow bag, which is definitely something that comes on all of my trips. So let's see what we got. We could go through, let's see, can I share this? Let's see, can you guys see my, all right, let's check this out. So this is my full gear list for this trip. Let me pull that up. Okay, so in terms of, this is just, you know, my standard fare stuff. So you know, like I said, I always use these it's gonna be pretty cool out, and we're gonna be doing a lot of bushwhacking, so going full pants. I've been using for the first time this year a sun hoodie, and this is a sun hoodie that I bought years ago, and it never kind of got into my rotation. It's not the lightest thing in the world, but it's from Eddie Bauer. I'm sure they don't sell it anymore in this iteration, but again, tall, it's a size tall, which I like, so it gets lots of coverage. And I definitely have noticed that using the sun hoodie means I get less, like I'm less thirsty, I'm less sunburned at the end of the day. I'm normally wearing a t-shirt, so my arms get, you know, quite a bit of sun exposure. So my arms are much less dark than they are most years because I've been wearing this. The hood up keeps my neck from getting all that heat on it. It really works. I don't understand how some people use black sun hoodies or dark blue. I like the idea of one that's a lighter color so it reflects a little bit. This one, I'm sure there's better ones out there, but this one fits me, so that works well. I always just use merino boxers, and then, you know, we all have our preferences for socks. The trip I did on Sawback, my socks were old and they literally decomposed on the first day. And I got some terrible blisters. So I like these socks by a company called Defeat. They're harder to, they used to be really easy to find here in Canada at Mech, and Mech still carries some. I think I got these at Mech just the other week. And I find them really comfortable. They work well for me. So that's kind of my sort of standard hiking outfit is a hat, pants, sun shirt, and yeah, socks. And in terms of shoes, I will be wearing the La Sportiva, the TX3s. So I've gone back and forth on shoes. You know, last year I ended up realizing that these just really suit me. So these are the shoes that I'm bringing on this trip. I don't know what it is about these shoes, but they just match my foot. I get zero issues with them. I've never had a blister in them. I wear them with these little, they're kind of like Dirty Girl gaiters, but some other brand or company that kind of clones them. So great. I really like these shoes. There's something about them. They're hard to explain, but they're fantastic shoes. Most people that try them end up loving them. I used these on a couple of trips this year, these Topo Traverse. So I don't know where my other Topos are. I had a Topo Mountain Racer 2 last year and the year before, and I liked them. I got these and they're a little bit stiffer, which I like. The other ones are a bit softer, but they have a very, very rigid and hard heel cup. And I think I've had some blisters and I think that's just maybe doesn't fit me perfectly. So I'm gonna see if it's something or just it's the shoes. So I think they're good shoes if they fit you. What else? So we got the La Sportivas, short gaiters. Oh, the Durston trekking pole. Let's see. So this is basically everything for this trip. That's how I normally do stuff is I get all my gear ready and I put it in that. And yeah, so I've been using I bought these pretty much right away because I have not had the pole of my dreams, and I've been using these since I got them this year, and so far they've really impressed me. They are super. I've abused them. I don't know if you can see the scratches on these. I've been through some pretty serious talus and scree fields. No issue. They are super stiff. Whenever I've used carbon poles, I feel nervous about them. I use the Black Diamond FLZ carbon, whatever they are. I used one of my friend Alex, I used one of his poles last year for 2 days, and the whole time I was out, I was sure that I was gonna snap it. So I just felt like it was gonna snap, and they break all the time. These ones, I haven't had that fear yet at all. They just feel solid. Obviously, it's not going to be for everyone that they don't collapse down into sort of one pole or whatever. But generally speaking, once I'm out on the trail, it's pretty rare. Well, I didn't use poles for years, but now I have been, and it's so light. It's hard to explain how light this is. And then also just how solid it feels. So I think the next iteration will have straps. I don't use straps, so I prefer it like this. I like to be able to put my hands on top like that. I like to be able to do all kinds of things. And I don't see the advantage of, personally. Hey, Jesse's here. Nice. How's it going? Love the war scars. Yeah. I'm guessing you're talking about the poles. So yeah, I've been pretty impressed with these. You know, I think some people were disappointed that they didn't have straps. I was not. I was super happy that they don't have straps. I like to be able to move my hands around. They're so light that you just don't feel the need for straps. I ski and whatever. I know what straps are for, and I don't, you know, that the Durston trekking poles don't have any snow baskets. Yeah, you know, so the pole that I was using before that was this Compordel. Oh, this is just kind of a basic Compordel pole. This is the Tie 7 EXP Compact, and it's ridiculous. Like, this weighs twice of, literally, it weighs twice. So I had the baskets, these little trekking baskets, and personally, I like having trekking baskets on my trekking poles because, especially when you're in talus, more than anything, when you're in talus, it stops the trekking pole from going deep into the rocks, and it'll often hold up closer. And also when you're in mud and stuff like that, it just doesn't sink down as much. So I prefer having baskets on it, and I just don't think that, I don't know what this weighs, but you know, it's not much. It can't be that much. It must be like a few grams. I have my scale somewhere. I could tell you guys what this weighs. It's an absurd amount to say that you wouldn't, I think the efficiency that you get from having a basket far outweighs the weight penalty. 0.25 ounces, 7 grams. I just, for what you get out of this, I think it's worthwhile. I prefer having it. I don't like it when, it sinks really deep into mud and stuff like that, and you're having to pull your pole out. So, yeah, so far, I've really liked them. I'm not a pole person, but I think they're pretty solid. So, I just also think, Dan, if you haven't seen, I do speak with Dan every now and then. I've done a trip with Dan, and this was last fall when I did that Rockwall trip with Dan, and I could see at one point, I think he grabbed this pole, and I think he was looking at it, and like you could see the wheels were turning. It's just funny because and I don't know at what stage he was in this sort of the pole life cycle at the time, but there's a lot of stuff here that's just never been seen before. Like, what is this connection? It's crazy, and it feels solid, and apparently it's like I haven't had any issues with it. You've got plenty of adjustment. Again, I'm a pretty tall person, and I run my poles short. I run often when I'm hiking, I'm at 115 centimeters, sometimes 120. Very rarely do I push 125. I just find that too high. I mean, I find it makes for very exaggerated movements. The main thing that I like having poles for is that one little moment when you think you might trip, and when you trip and fall, it just saves you from a tumble, So that's pretty exhausting. It's more stability than anything. Having a third leg. I find having two poles kind of distracting and less fun than walking with just one. I find it more natural just to have one. And I just I don't believe that they give you a ton of propulsion. I just don't believe it. I think they're great for stability. So this is something that I have been using. Forgot to mention that. Been trying these out. So far, very happy with them. And I have one still that has never touched the ground, brand new. So those are the poles. Very cool. Very cool that, very cool with, the fact that Dan tries these things. He goes out and he sees a gap in the market, I guess, which is neat. Do you have any issues with the fact that you don't have trekking poles? No. The wrist straps, again, like I said, I think that's a preference. If you stop using them, I find that sometimes with wrist baskets, what happens is if you do fall, you end up with the strap all kind of connected to you. And if you're in kind of a dicey place, I would just rather be able to eject from my poles. Same thing with skiing. When you get into a really dangerous place or there's risk for avalanche, you take your hands out of your straps because you want to be able to get rid of them. What do you think of the Nitecore? I have no experience with the Nitecore headlamps. I just, the thing is I've broken every plastic headlamp I've ever owned, so it bugs me. And I find them kind of disposable. So I use that Phoenix HM50R, has a changeable, you can change the battery, and it's super durable. I'll just get something that I do have from Nitecore. So I don't bring these things on all my trips because I try and be pretty frugal with my battery use, but I got this Nitecore, this Carbo battery, 10,000 milliamp hours, super light, very compact. I think they a little bit overpriced. I bought this from Jesse's in the chat. I got this at Gear Trade. Bought it from Jesse. Very compact, much more compact. I have a 5,000 milliamp hour Anchor battery bank, and I believe it weighs more than this 10,000, and it's more chunky and kind of bulky. So it looks like to me if I use this as a benchmark for Nitecore, they seem to make nice stuff. I think this has an IPX rating, so you can get a little bit of moisture on it. And so far it's worked well for me. This trip, it's a short trip, and I just find that I don't need a battery bank when I'm out for... It depends on if I'm making much, if I'm filming much, but I can definitely go 3 days without a battery bank. So this will be staying at home, but it's a good product. So again, the Nitecore headlamps have a pretty big following. For myself, especially in the summer here, there's the days are so long that you hardly ever use a headlamp. The winter's a different story. But again, I try not to try too many things if I don't need to. I have a good headlamp, it works for me, so why go out and... Yeah, so Jesse's saying the NB10000, that's the name of it, NB10000, better bang for your buck. Pretty much, Jesse could confirm, but I think the NB series, even the Gen 2, is about the same weight as the Carbo, and I think it's carbon fiber. I don't know. So I don't know why this one is sort of so expensive, but yeah, I like the form factor of these. They're so slim. 10,000, if you need, sometimes you see people out on the trail and you talk to people and they have a 20,000 milliamp hour battery. I don't know what you're doing that you need that much for. Oh, just going back to the question from Gandalf. Would that basket be enough to stop? No, that's a trekking basket. Sorry, I'm going back and forth all over the place. That's a trekking basket. It's not a snow basket, but Comperdale does make snow baskets. So you can put trekking basket, you can put a snow basket. Ski poles have the Carbo. That's weird. Why is the Carbo heavier? Well, 8 grams, whatever. But 8 grams, it adds up. So yeah, Carbo, I don't know. Baskets, yeah, that's not a snow basket. That wouldn't be my ideal for a snow basket. I'm sure Comperdale has a snow basket, and then that would be fine. I don't think I'd want to use those poles for skiing though. I'm not sure. It's hard to say. All right, so let's just go back to the list. What do we have here? Okay. Okay, so that's all of the stuff that I'm carrying. Big 3, backpack, Beta Light 45, that's for sure, my backpack. Always have a trash bag. I don't care that these bags are so waterproof. I always have a compactor bag. One of the reasons why is sometimes you have to open your bag and it's raining. And then the other thing is that if you're putting your tent in your bag and it's damp, I like to be able to segregate my dry sleeping bag from other things. So I always have, no matter what my pack is, I would have that in there. Tent. Okay, so backpack, the tent, the Z-Packs Altiplex, 17.2 ounces with the pole jack. That thing is really light. And if Jesse's still here, one thing that's for sure, if I decide that I like the Altiplex, I think that I will eventually pick up the Altiplex Light, which is 13 ounces, which would be just this great, fast and light summer shelter for pretty mild conditions. So 13 ounces is really light. Like I said, the Altiplex that I'm using, it's not mine, it's Justin Outdoors's tent, who is my neighbor. So I'm pretty lucky when it comes to trying gear, talking gear, bouncing gear ideas around. I've got the man himself on my street. We live like literally a few hundred meters apart, which is hilarious. So we've got the Z-Packs, Altiplex, tent stakes, just, a standard little, almost no matter what tent I'm bringing, I just bring this sort of mix of tent stakes. So that's that. The Vesper quilt, like that I showed. The Vesper quilt, I just stuff open into that trash compactor bag and the X-Lite NXT. All right, moving on. Cook system. This is pretty neat. I've been playing with a slightly different cook system. So if we look at everything that I bring for cook system, that's my stove and pot, alcohol, bottles, and filter. So if I look at that, the only thing that's not shown on there is my spoon, but I put that in my food bag. So this is my whole cooking system, super light, very minimal. Been using this year after years of wanting a caldera system. So this is a very small Evernew pot. Let me zoom or make this bigger for you guys. So this is, if you haven't seen this before, it's this company called Trail Designs that make these titanium windscreens. Alcohol is not the most popular thing right now. Oh, cool stuff here. Check that out. Little pot gripper from Suluk 46. When your handles get too hot, I think this thing weighs something like 7 grams or something like that. So, just tiny pot gripper. He sent me this, so I just throw it in there. Sometimes your handles get a little hot. So what's cool about these alcohol stoves from Trail Designs, it's just a little tiny, jar with some wick, some kind of absorbent material in there. You light that, put that in there, and this fits on perfectly. It's a perfect match, very efficient. So what I like about this, I used an alcohol cat can stove for years, and then I went to your BRS 3000 and canister stoves. I like alcohol. It's so quiet. You get to camp, you set this up, you light it, it's warming up, you do your tent, and it's chugging away. It's dead quiet, and it's super light, especially for overnight, 2-night trips. I can get a 2-night trip out of this alcohol bottle, no problem. And when all is said and done, when this is empty, what does my system weigh? It's so light. Let me just check what that weighs. All together, the stove and you're talking together. That's something like 5 ounces or less. Because don't forget, a lot of people will say, "Oh, you'll see things like my ultralight cook kit. It's 5 ounces, and it's a cook pot, and it's a lightweight little stove." But every stove system has to incorporate the fuel canister, the empty fuel canister, and a fuel like a pressurized butane propane mix canister. The small one, the 4-ounce can, empty, weighs about 4 ounces, so 100 grams. So that empty can weighs almost the same thing as my whole system, including the stove. For some reason, this pot is very light. So cool little system. I've been using that all year. I've been using it in the spring and a little bit of snow, and it works great. It's very efficient. It takes, I think, under 10 minutes to boil your water. But like I said, it's so stable that, once this is set up, you can't knock it over. So you set it up, you light it, and you start doing some other stuff, and before you know it, you turn around, your water's boiling, and it's time to make dinner. So that's one thing. Standard smart bottle, and this is a prime bottle. I use this for I make a mix with kind of an energy drink mix with maltodextrin, and I use that in this bottle. So I have an extra half liter there. And then my water filter system. So last year I used the Platypus quick draw system, which is, in terms of a filter, it's nice. I don't know if I have it here. Yeah. So I used this last year, and it came with, so this is the Platypus quick draw. I think it has a lot going for it, but it has a few things that I find kind of frustrating. One of them is that its matching bag is not durable. So that's a problem. At least, and it did happen to me that I broke one, like the seam literally exploded as I was filtering. So luckily this fits onto smart water bottles, and I normally have one, so you're fine. But this is I just found it. So then, having ripped that thing, I got one of these knock bags or whatever you call them, and I just find that, it's very popular, whether it's a Platypus quick draw or a Sawyer, whatever the name of the Sawyer filters are. Very popular to use this bag with some kind of screw-on filter. I just find it kind of, I don't know why, I find it easier to just have this, scoop my water, filter. When I'm done, I just make sure it's empty, put it away like this. I just shove it in my side pocket, and it works really well for me. I use this filter when I'm out with my friend Adam. He uses a similar kind of filter system with one of these bags. So we have a little bit of redundancy there, and I always have some water tabs. So what's nice about these is that if you do destroy this and you have another bottle that threads on it, you can still keep going. Whereas if you destroy this, you're in a little bit of trouble. I just haven't had any problems with this Flux. This is Hydropack Flux 1 liter. It works well for me, and I just find it, for whatever reason, I prefer it. Not that this is bad, I just prefer it. So that's just a preference. So that's my food and cook kit. It's, pretty minimal. Works for me. What else do we have? Let's see. So that's the cooking, everything in there. Next, electronics. My iPhone, an InReach Mini. This InReach Mini is getting pretty old. I think I got this in 2019. The battery is starting to get a little bit dodgy. And my Phoenix headlamp. So that's my electronics. I try and keep that pretty minimal. There are a few more things there. So, and then next up is my ditty bag, and I hate that word, but it's just my everything bag. So this is a bag from, prior to this one, I had a zippered bag from Outdoor Research, which was a sort of standard silicone nylon bag about these dimensions. This is X-Pack, I believe. It's quite light. I think it weighs an ounce. And so I don't talk about this much, but this is one of my favorite pieces of gear because it sort of replaces the brain from a standard backpack. So this is where I put, everything from, I have my summer fire kit, I have my toothbrush, all those odds and ends, some tick tweezers, because I've had some ticks this year. So these are very specific tick tweezers. They work pretty well. A little compass, one of these little thermometers. That's fun to see what the temperature was overnight. So that's a little Swiss Army knife and some tape. So first aid kit, pills, stuff like that. I also just keep, by default in the day, my flashlight in there. I keep my prescription eyeglasses, and that's pretty much it. So what I like about this bag, there's a few reasons why I use this bag as it is. One, it's very bright, so I can see it right away. Two, because it's a zipper like this, you put it down, you zip it open, and you can find stuff in it. Whereas you guys know, if it's a little ditty bag, you're kind of like looking in it. You put it down, it's on it. I find a zippered bag like this just really simple, and it works well. It sort of just makes your life easy. So all of my little stuff goes in there, and it's typically at the top of my bag. So if I need anything, really easy to get. It doesn't fall over, so you can be in camp and kind of leave it open, be getting stuff, putting stuff away. You know, if it's there and it's open, you're using your headlamp and you're done with it, you just throw it back in, and it's super bright, so I tend to see it very easily and not forget it. So that's my kind of everything bag. It has, yeah, my first aid kit, has a little compass, toothbrush, soap if I need some, sunscreen. I have sunscreen. If I put sunscreen in there, I don't end up using it, so I put the sunscreen on my side shoulder strap pouch. Glasses in case. Okay, next up, packed clothing. So you guys saw my kind of action clothes, what I wear all the time. In terms of packed clothes, pretty minimal. Sometimes I put it in a stuff sack, sometimes I don't, and I just put it in the main bag with my sleeping bag. I like to be able to just, I've been using this year, so I have a t-shirt, grid fleece. Learned my lesson on that sawback trip, and now I'm bringing an extra super short pair of socks, but you know, if I do shred my socks or wear them out for some reason, I think these are 1 ounce, so it's kind of worth it. Warm hat, warm socks that I sleep in. Always have some thin bread bags. These I put when I get to camp. Normally, if my feet are wet, take off my wet shoes, take off my wet socks, put on my dry socks, my warm dry socks, put these back on, put my feet in my shoes, and I'm good in camp. And extra pair of underwear, because my fear is always, for some reason, needing to change underwear. It's never really happened, but I always have them on me. So that's all the extra clothes I pack. Rain jacket, just a lightweight rain jacket. So that's all the clothes I have. I'm not bringing, I try and avoid bringing a down puffy jacket in the summer and just get away with being cool if it's a bit cool out. In the fall, definitely puffy jacket like this one, cheap one from Decathlon, gets thrown in there. So I try and make sure that stuff sacks and things like that are a bit oversized and they're not making a tight ball, and it's easier to get these in your bag and kind of fill the corners. So that's some other stuff. And what do we have next? Let's see. So next up, so that's everything. So the grid hoodie, the rain jacket, merino t-shirt, warm hat, merino underwear, merino socks, plastic bags, extra socks. Miscellaneous, Ursac, bear spray. They kind of go where we are. There's no storage, and these are mandatory-ish, so can't get away from that. That's over a pound of stuff just for whatever reason. You know, I doubt, that's weird, leftovers. So yeah, Ursac. The thing you don't want is to find out if the Ursac works, because your food's destroyed anyways. You just haven't given it to the animal. Next, media. So yeah, you know, I do try, and I don't always film videos. You know, a lot of people ask me for more trip videos to show that they prefer my trip videos over the gear style videos. The trip videos get next to no views, realistically. They get next to no views, and they're by far the most work. So what I'm trying to do is minimize my camera system and become more efficient. So what I've been using for years is just having a GoPro with me, and then I also have a compact camera with me. I'm using that one right now. It's the Sony, if you want to look it up, it's the Sony ZV-1 Mark II. Let's just see if there's any questions in the chat. Okay, no other questions. So the camera that I'm using right now, I'm filming on, is the Sony ZV-1 Mark II. It's a very compact, very good little camera. It has excellent image quality, great low light. It has terrible battery life, and it has very bad image stabilization. So that means that like walking and filming while you're walking is just bad with this camera. And the fact that it has such bad battery life, I kind of avoid bringing it. It's become my studio camera, so the camera that I film indoors with. I've played with so many cameras. So what I'm at right now, and what I'm going to be really trying for the first time on this trip, is so this is my, now I won't be bringing this, I'll just be bringing the extra batteries. So this is going to be, on this trip, my media setup. Let's see, are we in full size? Yep. Okay. I haven't decided about two things, but this is going to be my full camera system. Haven't decided about this little tripod. I've had this tripod for years and it's great, but I haven't decided. It's like 1.5 ounces, so it doesn't really matter. But this is everything. So first part is, this is a camera called the DJI Osmo Action 4. It's a great little camera. It has a lot of things going for it, and I'm replacing my GoPro with this because it can connect wirelessly to this little microphone. So I'm using this microphone's friend. I'm wearing it under my shirt right now. So these microphones give you really great audio quality. It connects by Bluetooth, so it means that if I want to sort of set this up and talk nicely, it'll give very good audio. These cameras are heavily affected by wind. So, you know, almost more important than seeing things is having clear audio. So the GoPro, what I do is I stick little fuzzy bits over the microphones, but then it's not great for the moment you get more than, let's say, an arm's reach away from the camera, the audio is pretty bad. So because this is just always on you, you get fantastic audio no matter where you are. And then the other neat thing about this is that so what I do is whenever I'm on the trail, whenever I'm hiking, I just have this clipped to my shoulder strap. And it means that I have my camera all the time. The more accessible a camera is, the more you use it. So I'm getting little shots every now and then. If I want to talk to the camera, super easy, flip it over towards me, and I can just have this microphone in the shoulder pocket of my backpack. I can turn it on, I can talk, even in wind, it should give really good audio. And then what I have is a kind of system. I've been using this for this year. Instead of bringing a tripod, you'll see people carrying a tripod. This is part of a tripod. And what I've done, let's see, where are we? So this is part of a tripod. It's just the sort of the upper pole. And I've put on this part of a 1/4-20 bolt. And I can stick it into the ground, kind of like a tent peg, and get the equivalent of a tripod. And it weighs like 3 ounces. And then because of the DJI system, I can just pop my camera from my shoulder clip onto that. And I have a little camera on a stick that, you know, if I'm in camp and I want to film myself setting up a tent or talk to the camera a bit or do whatever little talking head thing, this is a very light option. So I'm looking forward to testing that out. I think this is the camera that Justin uses. So pretty tried and true. But I like to have it on that shoulder clip. It's probably been the most consistent thing that I've been doing. So I've been using the GoPro for that. So this is a GoPro just from a different company, DJI, on my shoulder strap, really effective. And if you look at that all, again, like I said, I'm not sure if I'll bring this little tripod. You never know. It's not very heavy, but you know, that is, if I look at my weights, let's see, if we go back to what does everything, you know, all that together, excluding this, extra batteries, 2 extra batteries, the camera, the clip, and the tripod, it's right around £1 with the microphone. So this is a pretty minimalist camera setup. And you know, it depends, because sometimes I'm out on a trip and it just, the way it unfolds, it doesn't make filming practical, or just nothing really interesting happens. And then I don't film much. And then if I'm carrying an extra camera, the extra weight, it kind of bothers me. So I'm trying to minimize, get something really efficient. These batteries, you know, this is more than enough. One of the things that DJI does really well is they have very good battery life. So these are quite big batteries. I think they're 1,700 or, yeah, 1,700 milliamp hours. So, which is pretty big. They're supposed to last over 2 hours each. So that's 6 hours of filming. I better not film that much. So that's my camera system. So that's really everything all together. Again, you know, worn clothing, big 3, cook system, electronics, my little extras, bear stuff, so bear spray, Ursac, and then my media stuff, camera. And that all together, 12 pounds, just under 12 pounds. Pretty good considering it has kind of some camera system and also the bear stuff. So you take the bear stuff out, you know, the way that I like doing it is often what I do is so if you're not familiar with this website, this is Pack Wizard. I think some of you might be familiar with it. So this is Pack Wizard. What's pretty neat about it is that I'll do things like just say, okay, well, if I wasn't carrying that bear stuff, so I just put it as if I'm worn, and I was just carrying I didn't have the media, just under 10 pounds, which is pretty respectable, sort of ultralight. And those other things, you know, I like to know what my total weight is, so 12 pounds on the dot. So that's the plan. We'll see. I hope, so we're going to be 4 on this trip. I hope that I'm going to do my best to make a trip video, because it should be pretty neat. It's definitely not somewhere that a lot of people go. And yeah, so that's the plan. That's all the gear walkthrough. If there's any last questions, I'll take them now. Let's see. So yeah, so that's the plan. Another part, maybe if anyone is interested in the food that I bring, it's pretty simple. I always do the same stuff all the time, especially on these shorter trips. I bring quite a bit of food, so that's sort of day 1 food, day 2 food with my dinner. I basically bring a bag of chips for every day, some bars for every day, maltodextrin, so carbohydrate powder for every day, some other bars, some gummy bears. I have some dried sausage too. So again, for both days, I have all the same stuff. Plus for a dinner, I always bring just some freeze-dried meal. It's quick and easy. And yeah, just a bunch of bars, mostly bars, carbohydrate powder, chips. I think it's about 200 grams of sausage a day, and it works out to about 1 kilo, 2 pounds of food per day, and I will eat it all. So I see people bring like 1.5 pounds of food. If I brought 1.5 pounds of food, I would crash. I would be dead. I burn a lot of energy. So that's everything. I hope that was kind of interesting. And yeah, so there will hopefully be a trip video after this. Again, there will also probably be a follow-up review in the near future on the Phoenix 7, some thoughts on it, and some other stuff. So that's it. I will call it a night, and have a good one. Have a good weekend. Get out there if you're gonna go out on some trips, and you know, go on some adventures. Have fun. So have a good one. Good night.